One's ready. One's ready. Go!
No, Trent, we're not going to be professional. Welcome back to the One's Ready podcast, everybody. Hey, I'm going to put a disclaimer up here, and I rarely do this. If you're here for some fair and some balanced exposition of the news, if you're here to get some mentorship from people that are going to act professional, fucking turn this off. Turn it off right now. That ain't what this is about.
I do think it's fair.
Justice is always fair. And
Yeah.
I think, like what did the Joker say in the Batman movie? Chance is always fair. You know, the fucking little coin flip when he had the gun to Two-Face's head. Speaking of Two-Face, we're going to talk about some recent stuff that broke yesterday. It's literally been blowing up every single person in AFSOC's phone. If you ever worked in AFSOC, you know a couple names and you've just got straight vitriol. So here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the fact that Pete Hegseth last night came out on Twitter, on every single other platform, and in every single group chat that I'm on. Every single group chat I'm on with a PJ, with a combat controller, every text message, Jim, Slife, and CQ Brown were fired. And I am here for it. This is going to be the pettiest hour that you have ever been involved in a One's Ready podcast, because boy, do I have some big feelings. Trent, how has your last couple days gone? How you feeling, buddy?
It's been going great. You know, it's hard to explain when you retire. Like when I retired out of the Air Force, I didn't have a great feeling about the Air Force or the military in general, the direction it was going. It felt really good to get out. I didn't have any of those transition issues because I'm like, fuck that, fuck all of that. I'm out of here. Good luck.
Right, man.
But but it's not that I still don't care, right? Just because you're retired doesn't mean you still don't care. So the last couple of days with all the news that's been coming down has been fantastic.
It's been absolutely fantastic. I felt the same way. I think, we talk about it all the time. Trent, Peaches, and I, we talk literally every single day. I talk to these three dudes literally every single day of my life about everything. And if that group chat ever gets leaked, we are going to jail. They are going to make a special jail for our group chat, because it gets very unhinged. And for people that would guess, like, oh, who says the most unhinged stuff in that group chat? Trent, let's just say it on three. Who do you think says the most unhinged stuff all the time? Like when you get the spiciest reel or the spiciest X post, who sends it? We'll say it on three. 1, 2, 3, Peaches.
Peaches.
100%.
No one would guess that, I don't think. But
that dude, stuff pops up from him, and I literally will type in the group chat. We use Signal because it's got good end-to-end encryption, and it's not perfect, but it's probably one of the better ones. But I will literally say, hey, to the NSA agent that's looking at this chat, that was a joke for legal reasons, because that dude goes hard. I can't.
Like, the insults. I don't take things personally, but every once in a while he'll come out with something. I'm like, dang, bro. Like, I'm going to think about that later.
I'm going to think of that one hurt me. Yeah, that one. Yeah. Even like, and then every once in a while he'll try to he'll compliment you or something, and you'll be like, this is a trap. I'm not going to respond to this.
Definitely.
This is going to be a trap. All right, so let's hop right into it. So if you guys weren't tracking, I don't know how you are. I mean, this is the biggest news in Air Force history and in the recent, at least in my recent memory. Can we just accept this image for 1 second? Can we look at this poo-poo face on what this is? And I can't wait to use this word because it actually means something. This racist piece of crap finally got what he deserves. So Friday Night Massacre at the Pentagon. This is via The Atlantic. Trump's purge started with the firing of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the top Navy officer, and the vice chief of the Air Force. President Donald Trump tonight began a purge of the senior ranks of the United States Armed Forces in an apparent effort to intimidate the military and create an officer corps personally loyal to him. I pulled this story directly because we are going to have a little thing that I like to call the truth, and then what these idiots don't fucking get. Because the narrative is going to come out, of course, this was racially based. There's a thing called accusation through projection. It's a handy tool. It came out of the Rules for Radicals. You accuse, that's a great book and a great framework too. So Yuri Bezmenov came up with the Rules for Radicals. And basically one of the rules for radicals, if you want to foment a revolution, he came up with rules for radicals. And one of his rules for radicals, I'll pull it up here as a second when Trent gets to talking. When you have a willingness, rules for radicals.
Oh, you're pulling it up right now?
I'm pulling it up right now. So Rules for Radicals, Yuri Bezmenov, basically he came up with a framework for how to foment a revolution. One of those rules for radicals is you accuse your opponent of doing exactly what you're doing. Now, if you think about the left in this country, and when I say the left, I don't mean like blue dog Democrats. I don't mean people like Ro Khanna I disagree with on a couple of key issues. And of course, like those key issues are red lines for me. But there are some like actual people that tend to be on the left side of the aisle, the Democrats. That's not what I'm talking about when I say the left. I say the left as an ideology, as a overall bad for the world, the social, economic, the whole thing that's wrapped up into leftism as it is, right? Like these liberal blue-haired fucks that we have to fight against every single day because they're trying to rule America. They're going to try to frame this like, oh, Trump is firing black generals and whatever. No. We have all the receipts for you. So basically, Hegseth came out yesterday and he said, hey, you guys have had some great service here. And unfortunately, that service is over. And he named 3 people specifically. And that's right about when. Now, I will say that I had a video. I record a video. Sometimes I'm driving in and there's traffic in Vegas and I'll record a video. I had gotten wind, because I am way too online. I had gotten wind of this little list that Pete Hegseth was shopping around. I didn't know all the names on it, but I did know that there were 2 names that I wanted. And I even made a video that I didn't post because I was at work and I was doing all this other stuff. But I was like, dude, Pete Hegseth, I love you, bro. Can I add 2 names to your list? Friday morning, those 2 names were CQ Brown and General Jim Slife, because I fucking hate them. And they've done the most damage to the military that we can possibly have. Trent, when the news broke, how is it that you felt about the announcement?
Lego's too good to be true. That's where I went first. Is really like CQ Brown. I could see going right away, but the fact that we were able, or whoever was able, to get the General Slife's name up that high as a one of the first people to be purged. And by the way, I loved actually the way the Atlantic has put this. Like there's a purge and President Trump is trying to intimidate the high level officers. Hell yeah, he is, and good on you.
You're right.
Like I'm for it. Like they're like, this is like somehow trying to make this a negative thing to intimidate these fucking political officers that should be kowtowing to the Congress and the president and all those other stuff, the people that they actually work for. I'm here for it. So I was just impressed that it actually happened. I like what they're doing, and it couldn't have come. It's a long time coming, and I'm very happy about it. So like, of course, there's going to be the racial component. There's going to be, General Jim Slife going through there and trying to erase his history and trying to, make it sound like something other than it is. But the fact of the matter is these guys are politicians. They have no actual principles, and whoever's in charge, they would, change the direction that they're going. And when the leftists are in charge, I think that's actually the way that they go, because I think they're, cowards and victim mentality and all that other crap.
Yeah. And let me explain to you real quick how this filters down to lower levels, because sometimes the people's reaction to this is like, okay, well, yeah, you're always going to have people in your chain of command that you don't agree with or that say some wild stuff, but that doesn't really affect you at the unit. Let me tell you how exactly it affects you at the unit. When you have somebody like General CQ Brown that we're going to get into, and when you have somebody like, General James Slife in charge of your command, when you have those commanders, the subordinate commanders that may feel the same way are empowered to act in larger and even more this is where all the COVID stuff came from. This is where all of the safetyism came from. This is where all the risk aversion came from, is because when you have a commander like that, his subordinate commanders, like let's say the 1st Sal Wing commander, Jason Daniels, when you have those people that operate under a framework where they think they can get away with shit, they will push that line further and further and further, because then what they get to do is they get to act on the authority of their commander and speak for them. It's a disgusting, toxic leadership trait. And unfortunately, AFSOC is not immune to those sort of things. So when you have a subordinate commander that looks at their boss, and we're going to talk about all the stuff that CQ Brown did. We're going to start all the way back to when he had a very interesting video that he decided to post on his own about how racist the Air Force was as he was being named to the head of the fucking Air Force, which is sort of a weird thing. Like,
wild.
if we're that racist, I'll just pull it up now. So CQ Brown, he came out as he was getting promoted. So to button up what I was talking about earlier, this stuff does affect every single person in the team room. This does affect every single thing that you're doing at the squadron. It affects the way that you manage risk. It affects the way that you interact with your coworkers. It affects the way that you show up to work. It affects the way that people treat you. We went through an extremism stand down under CQ Brown and under Jim Slife, where they told me physically to my face that I needed to walk into my team's rooms. We were deployed. Usually when you deploy and you go away from the flagpole, you get to go away from all that other dumb nonsense. You get a little pause on having to do the nitinoid. Like basically when you deploy, they basically put a pause on some of the stuff that you're supposed to do that's like a pain, like CBTs, like, oh, you've got to do your annual IT training. Well, you get it done before you go out the door. If it's green when you go out the door, it's green when you're deployed. That's typically the rule, right? You don't have to do all these little things, all that minutia that really gets, sticks in your craw or grinds your gears on a daily basis. You get a break from them. You actually just get to go do the job. Well, there I was in Africa, and I had to get on a VTC with one of these other dickhead low-level commanders that was operating with the authority of their the next chain up, essentially. And he told me I had to walk into my team's room and I had to look for signs of extremism. I lost my fucking mind. I was like, what do you mean? Define it. Define,
extreme capability? Because
hey,
that's what I'm going to find, bro.
I'm a senior NCO. I'm an E8. You can take, I'm a senior master sergeant. Darn it. I'm a senior master sergeant pararescue, but I'll do whatever you want. I was like, okay, just do me a favor. Define extremism. And they're like, well, we can't, but it's like, images or whatever. Famously, Mark Milley said that the number one problem in the military at that time was white rage, right? So they're like, yeah, you got to look for symbols of extremism. I'm like, you want me to go into my guys' personal spaces at one of the most intense parts of their life, and you want me to make a non-defined judgment call on what I think extremism is. And things that I was supposed to look for, no shit. No kidding. The Gadsden flag, like, don't tread on me. American flags, hyper-patriotism.
You mean the flag that we have to wear on our uniforms?
On our right shoulder. And by the way, those same dudes, the hilarity of this, like the hypocrisy and the fucking ridiculousness. God forbid, we had to post sit reps. Sit reps are like the bane of everybody's existence because insecure commanders will force you to give them a slide deck of things that you do. Like when we would go out and train partner forces, or if we went out on a mission, they would literally want, like 24 hours later, they would want a sit rep and a slide deck of things that you did. And we would take pictures. I messed up one time. I took a picture of some dudes that were teaching a class in 100-degree heat in Africa in a building with no air conditioning. And one guy, God forbid, he had his team t-shirt on, not even like just a random t-shirt. He had a team t-shirt on, not his combat top. And I, no kidding, had to spend an hour of my life getting dressed down. The slide deck only went to our chain of command. This didn't hit CNN. He wasn't wearing a shirt that was so, like, grab him by the pussy, Trump's my guy. It was an image of our team patch. And it didn't even have, we had a Yeti as our team patch. It was a cryptid with no words on it. And I had to have a very long VTC about how that didn't present a military image, right? The same people that are telling me that they had to have their top on and display that flag proudly now told me that that was a pretty good indicator that that guy was a white domestic terrorist. And God forbid if he was Christian. And if you like, and again, we don't talk about this stuff real openly because it kind of feels like airing dirty laundry or whatever, but it provides a good context because that is what we were dealing with under these two folks. So I mentioned it before, but we're going to jump right into this. So in, I believe it was like 2000. Let's see when this was. So this news story broke December 11th of 2020. For an Air Force leader, making video on racism he faced was the right thing to do. So let me tell you just two quick things, and I'll turn it over to you, Trent. Number one, the demand for this sort of shit, the demand for racism being everywhere, the demand for transphobia being everywhere, the demand for white extremism that has permeated our military, that demand is exponentially higher than the actual supply. So when people like The Guardian, people like NPR, people like all these people, when they have these huge news stories on it, they make you think that everybody in the military is a white Christian nationalist extremist. You saw it with Pete Hegseth and his Deuce Volt tattoo. You saw it with his Christian tattoos. By the way, Jimmy Carter had that same Christian cross that Pete Hegseth has tattooed on him. in the rotunda as part of his like laying interment, right? So General C.Q. Brown, he decided that as he got, nominated as the Air Force Chief of Staff, he issued an emotional and a personal video message about racism in the military. At the time, the country was roiling with the wake of the killing of the police killing. That was not a police killing. That was a drug addict and a felon that pointed a loaded weapon at a pregnant woman's stomach as he was robbing her and died of a fentanyl overdose. And that's the facts of the matter, right? So during the George Floyd and the Summer of Love, in the military, this is what we're focusing on. The guy that's about to take over the Air Force, the guy that's going to be the highest ranking officer in the Air Force, said that there was racism. Point number one is the demand is always higher than the supply. And number two, let me just tell you, if he faced this much racism, we're the worst racists in the world. Like, we couldn't even prevent this guy from becoming the highest ranking officer in the Air Force.
Yeah. Yeah. We're not good at our job.
We're not good. I'll tell you what, if we're the world's worst racists, like America's a really bad racist. We elected a black president twice. We had a civil rights movement. We're the freest, most tolerant, most benevolent country on the face of the planet. People kill themselves literally to get here.
And he's talking about his sons. So you have two sons that are the sons of a 4-star general that is leading the Air Force. And you think that their experience is going to be what? Growing up where they grow up. And dealing with the people that they deal with, you think that they're going to experience some kind of racism? And to be clear, just so we're super clear, if we're out with our team, and hey, guess what, guys? Not all of our teammates are white dudes. It's wild. And someone came up to one of our teammates and said something racist, that person's going to get their ass beat. You know what I mean? Like that. When it's serious, this is like the sexual assault stuff and all that other stuff. Like when you talk about things that aren't actually happening, and you're making shit up. We need to come in and say like this is all bullshit. But if like you actually experience real racism, like if we were training in a certain state or whatever, and someone came up at a bar and said something to one of our boys, we are going to kick the living shit out of that person. Like,
let me tell you an exactly fun story about this. I was just talking to Nick. He's one of my man. Like, you ever have those dudes? Like Nick is younger than I am. Nick just recently retired. He's doing awesome stuff on the back end. He's younger than me. You can have mentors and you can have people that look up to that aren't as old as you. Nick is one of those dudes that I look up to. I was reminded of a time when I worked at the 321st over in England. It was my first assignment. And that team, all of us say it. Our team sergeant works here in Vegas, a guy named Curtis. He's awesome. He's long since retired. But like every time that we are talking, he will tell you, he's like, best time ever. Best team that I've ever had. We did the most good work. Like I get chills just thinking about that. So there we were. And we were in Norway. One of my best friends in the whole world at the time. He was actually my roommate, and we joked. My man, Chris, Chris, Little Smalls. Little Smalls was a combat controller. He was an African-American dude. He was a dark-skinned dude. All the jokes are there. It took him like 3 times to get through dive school, make whatever, borderline joke you want to make there, but he'll make the joke too. And we've made it literally his entire career, which is a weird thing for a bunch of racists to do. The fact that we were able to like have fun with each other in the team room, and he knew that I would kill people for him. Chris was there. We're out at a bar, just doing what team dudes do. You roll deep, no chicks, just 12 guys all together, out at a bar.
Pile of dudes.
The girls never came, man. Well, in this case, the girls actually did show up. So we didn't know what was going on. We went to this bar, right? And so it's a bunch of good looking, big, in shape Americans. It was Baskin Robbins 31 flavors. We had a couple of Asians, we had a couple of big, thick white dudes, we had a couple of black dudes, we had a couple of Hispanic dudes. And we're just rolling heavy, man. You know what I mean? In a foreign country, it's -40 out. And little did we know that this little camp in Norway, the only other thing that was in this little place in Norway was a nursing college.
Oh, no.
For Norwegians. And the bar that we went to, by the way, totally happenstance. We're just like, oh, what's a good bar to go to? We're asking the Norwegians. They're like, oh, you got to go to this one bar. It's really cool. It's really fun. It stays open late, cheap drinks. The Norway, like it's expensive.
Did that on purpose.
It's expensive. It's expensive to drink in Norway. However, they were like, yeah, cheap drinks. You guys will love it. So we're like, okay, cool. Well, we show up there and it was American football night.
Yes.
So we literally walk in and there are 19 to 24-year-old Norwegian nursing students packing this place. It was probably
known for being super ugly.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I want to put out a fact check on that. Holy shit. No, the Norwegians are not super ugly. They're all fit. They all go out. They're all super cool. They all drink heavily. It's really common in Norway to not even go out until like midnight. Like the girls in Norway will go out. They'll be like, I'm not going out to the bar before whatever. I'm going to pregame at the house. It's cheaper. I'm going to show up to the bar buzzed as shit at like 12:30 and I'm partying until 4.
Yeah.
Guys are going to be guys, girls are going to be girls. I'm not going to talk about that part of it. What I'm going to talk about is we step in that place and we are immediately targets. The poor Norwegian dudes, because the Norwegian dudes and the Norwegian females are pretty similar, right? Like you got some Vikings that are still floating around there. Oh, another just funny aside. You know what they call ugly chicks in Norway?
What?
Swimmers. You know why? Because the Vikings, when they would raid England and then come back to Norway, they throw the ugly ones over the boat and then they'd have to swim back to England. Which is like... Anyway, there we were, right? So, man, it's fun. We're drinking, whatever. I look at my friend Ted and, it's later in the night. We'd all had a couple of drinks or whatever. And some dude walks by us and Ted goes, hey, man, that's that guy that punched Chris. And I was like, I'm fucking sorry. Excuse me. And he was like, oh, yeah, he kind of like took a swing. He didn't really hit him. I was like, what was it about? And Ted looks at me and goes, oh, he called him the N-word. And I looked at Ted and I was like, excuse me? Like, so these guys, there's 4 dudes, right, that had walked out and they were taking a pee in the snow. Like they by the way, it was like just a normal street. Like it's like -40 and it was, completely covered in snow and ice and whatever. It's Norway in the winter. Like it is what it is. And I was like, that guy right there punched one of my best. I sleep next to this guy every night. And I was like, and you guys didn't beat him to death. I had on this real nice pea coat, like Boondock Saint style. This is like 2010. Shit was just crispy, right? So I looked at him. I finished my little vodka soda. I took off my pea coat. I handed it to him. And I was like, I'm going to go beat that guy's fucking ass. And if you guys want to come, you can, but I don't need you. And then I proceeded to do that. We got into a huge fight. I mean, like international incident level fight. Like base command had to get involved. Like there was a guy that retired. He just retired. His name is Dwayne. Dwayne was my team sergeant. He was a tech sergeant at the time. He also ended up being like the chief of ACC before he left. And now he does a really cool job still in the community. So he's awesome. That guy was like, I chased a guy around a corner. Like I was in the middle of a bunch of Norwegians and we were going ham. Like we got like, it was a whole deal. That is how racist we were, right? That is the facts of the matter. So now as we kind of like go back,
can we just say how good of a dude Chris is too? Like,
God, I love him. I love him.
Like he's one of those guys that you only meet a couple times. And you're just like, you're the nicest person on the planet. Like
he's got 700 kids now. Like it's so great. Like I love that dude. Like that guy, and he'll be the first person to tell you like his mentorship, like for young African Americans going through the pipeline. Because again, if you want to talk about racism in the military, let's talk about how they force these people that they view as tokens into these forward-facing things. They did it with Rob Gutierrez. They tried to force him into a position where they were like, hey, we want you to talk about all this stuff and whatever. And I'll let Rob tell the story of how that worked out. But the Air Force, you want to talk about what really PAO is racist. How about that? How about you're looking for these people so that, oh, well, if people look like me, then they can do it too. Like that's the standard. That seems kind of racist to me.
Was Rob going to talk about the Cholo life? Because that's what he wants to talk about.
He really does, man. You should see him in his off time. He got the high socks. He just have to.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so man, to loop it all the way back. So that's the reality of the moment. And now we get to kind of like 2021.
Yeah.
The question here: you are the highest ranking African American in the United States military. There are 12,000 active duty pilots in the Air Force. Only about a dozen are Black women. Do you see that as a problem? I do, said General CQ Brown. You only aspire to what you've been exposed to. Sometimes we might self-eliminate because we don't think we're qualified. One of the areas that the Air Force are looking at now is how do we provide more exposure to young African Americans, women really across the board that, yes, you can do this. The other thing that was happening at this time is that General Lloyd Austin was about to be named SecDef. So at the same time, and this is going to be a wacky thing to try to make sense in your brain because the cognitive dissonance needed to make this leap is freaking ridiculous. You're telling me that the 2 highest ranking, the number 1 guy, the guy that he'd done something that no one had ever done before. He had achieved the highest rank in the United States Air Force and Secretary Austin was about to make history as the first Black SecDef of the United States of America. And they took that time and that platform not to talk about meritocracy, not to present the image to those people that he's talking about, like, hey, I'm here, you can do this. He chose to talk about racism and make it about his immutable characteristics being race and race alone. That's the type of person that he was and that he is. And it did not stop there. I just don't understand. Trent, help me understand why it is that we're talking about that.
But I don't know. It's the least interesting thing about anybody. It really is. And to think that to the arrogance to come in there and be like, well, women just are not exposed to this. And you hear the exposure argument a lot across all of these types of things. Like, well, they just don't know what's out there. And it's like, I don't know how many videos have you seen about people interviewing people in the Bronx? It's like, well, do you have a smartphone? And
do you have an ID? Oh my God. Who was it?
Do you have a driver's license? They'd be like, why wouldn't I have a driver's license? You know, how could you do anything without an ID card? You know what I mean? Like the voter ID laws and all that other crap.
Yeah.
The soft racism coming from that other side is the racism. That's what it is. To believe that somehow people cannot think for themselves and cannot expose themselves to this, cannot get onto YouTube and watch all the same videos that everybody else watches, you know? There are not pilots just wandering around every city in America being like, do you all want to be pilots? But somehow we managed to find all these people that want to be pilots and special operators and all that other stuff. And so to think that somehow these people are A, either ignorant, or B, lack the ability to find the information to get the jobs that they aspire to is bad. Like that is racist.
It's called the soft bigotry of low expectations.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that is. It's when Kathy Hochul gets on, television and starts talking about, she's like, some of these kids have never seen a laptop. Like the memes that came out of that stupid thing. By the way, let me quick correction too. It was not Yuri Bezmenov that had Rules for Radicals. It was Paul Alinsky. I misspoke earlier. But when you have a narrative that you're constantly forcing down these people's throats, like the juxtaposition, like I love the Man on the Street interviews where they'll take this thing that the MSM says, and to a lesser extent, the United States military. When people look at me and they tell me, oh, well, these people just don't know that. Oh, what you're saying is you think these people are so stupid that they don't have the internet, that they can't see a plane flying and go, oh, I could fly that plane if somebody, like, man, if I had the right support and if I had the right drive and, meritocracy wins out and I'm the best person for the job, I can go do that. I can go do anything I want. That's inherently woven into the fabric of our society. That is the American dream.
Yeah. That
some dork kid from Northeast Ohio that was in musicals as a senior and a swimmer can somehow become a pararescueman with 5 combat deployments. That's me. That's what the American dream fucking is. And to have the soft bigotry of low expectations, to make it all about race, when you achieve the highest heights, and you said you did that in spite of institutional racism, women do it to a lesser degree. I quote you all the time on this one. Women complain about the glass ceiling. Those women are usually standing on top of the ceiling in their heels, stomping their little feet, talking about how they had to fight to make it there. No, motherfucker, you were given all kinds of things that no other person was given. And the narrative, at least in the team rooms at this time, was like, well, I'd love to get promoted, but unfortunately I'm a white guy that loves Jesus. So looks like I'm going to get passed over.
Well, they're actively trying to create the thing that they claim that they're trying to avoid.
Right.
That's what it does. And really, if you want to talk about racism, it does exist, but it exists from the people that are crying out that everybody else is racist. That's what it is. Or sexist or whatever else it is, right? Like those videos on the street. You find those very liberal people that look a lot like me in Berkeley, California, and they're the ones that are going to be like, of course, like those poor people, and I get it. They're very feelings oriented and that they believe the things that they hear. But of course, they couldn't possibly, without my benevolence, make it to where I am today. Like, you're out of your fucking mind. And that's disgusting.
Right. So to continue fleshing this out, CQ Brown, he was making the rounds. He was trying to do all this cool stuff. So, this one broke. What's the date on this one? I can't see it. Doesn't matter that much. Trump fires Black Joint Chiefs chair Hegseth. Trump fires Black Joint Chiefs chair Hegseth accused of promoting diversity. So Hegseth went on the Sean Ryan.
Is it weird that the headline is 2 different sentences, or did they?
It is so weird. Yeah. So I think with I guess that headline is so fucking terrible. God, who is this? The Guardian? God,
your editors need to be fired. That's who needs to be fired right now.
I can't even read it. Like just the way that those words are ordered, like nothing's capitalized. Joint Chiefs, Hegseth, whatever. Okay, great. So basically, so this all started coming to a head. You know, he goes, Hegseth goes on to the Sean Ryan podcast and he goes, first of all, you got to fire the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Hegseth said during a November interview on the Sean Ryan show. Any general that was involved, general, admiral, or whatever that was involved in any of the DEI woke shit has got to go. Now, this is why people were terrified of Hegseth. It wasn't that he wasn't qualified. It wasn't, dude, this guy looks good, speaks good. He was created and he's more transparent. I didn't see a single video from Lloyd Austin during his entire time, other than the gay Darth Vader thing that he was doing with the face mask and the walking outside in a mask and a face shield and all that. Like,
just screams power and confidence. That's what that was screaming. Yeah,
you're not. Yeah, a guy with a BMI of 45 walking down the line of military dudes that fucking hate him, looking like gay Darth Vader. I don't know what to tell you. Brown was actually praised at the time, including by Trump, for breaking racial barriers in the military. And I love how they put this one in quotes, warfighter credentials. Hilarious. I had the distinct privilege or, maybe dishonor of hearing CQ Brown talk. And he talked about this at the fighter pilot get together. Like the weapons school had, I think their 75th or something. And some 50th, 75th something anniversary of basically their organization. He injected it there. And let me tell you, from being in the room and looking around, it was about half and half. It was about half of people going, and the other half of people going, oh my God, this fucking shit again. Like, why are we talking about this? Again, the demand for this far outstrips the actual supply for all of these things. In a post to his social media platform Friday evening, Trump announced he would replace Brown with retired Lieutenant General Dan Raisin Kane, retired military leader. Trump said he'd been passed over for promotion by Sleepy Joe Biden. This is another fun little wrinkle. I don't know if you guys are tracking who Raisin Kane is. Every single person that texted me or asked me about it loves this dude. He should have been there from the very beginning. This guy is freaking amazing from all accounts. Like, we finally made the right case here for CQ, to get rid of CQ Brown and replace him with somebody that's good. Now, of course, Raisin Kane is a white guy, right? So of course we're going to have to deal, with this stuff. But the good thing that these people have fucking forgotten is that, especially if you look at my social media, if you go over to Aaron Loves America on Instagram, none of those words mean anything anymore. Call me a racist, call me a fascist, call me a homophobe, call me a transphobe.
It's in your DMs. Yeah.
Dude. I'll tell you what, I was texting. We're going to talk about lowercase tombs too. Shout out to the dudes at LCD for doing the Lord's work. And you're going to get your credit here, regardless of our past personal history. I'll tell you what, I was like, they responded to that DM. I posted the guy, like, I have achieved a new level of unlikableness when you can actually trigger the most polite country in the world, being Canada. Like, these people are notorious for being passive and being little twinks, just like their leader, Justin Trudeau. Do not say that Justin Trudeau is Castro's son, by the way. I know his mother spent time there. I know there's pictures of her and Fidel Castro. I know that Justin Trudeau was born shortly after that trip, right about 10 months after that trip. I know that Justin Trudeau looks exactly like Fidel Castro. Don't say that that's Castro's son.
That'd be weird.
It's not nice. But I told him, I was like, I can't believe that, I'm getting death threats from Canadians now. Like, I have finally ascended into my final form.
Let's go, bro. Here's my address in Canada. Yeah. Come on up here. What? Why?
First of all, your terms are acceptable. Like, that guy also went on to say that he knew people in the cartel and he had somebody, bro, you're a 19-year-old in Canada. You're not a fucking cartel button pusher. And also, your terms are acceptable. I got a downstairs gun. I got a kitchen gun. I got a bedroom gun. I got a shower gun. And I've got a high level of anxiety anywhere that I am. I've always got that blicky on me. Your terms are fucking acceptable. The only thing I miss about the military are gunfights. Go fuck yourself. I would happily engage in that sort of scenario. Finally, violence is a virtue. And I'll tell you what, I am a virtuous man, at least in one regard. I don't give a shit. Let's go.
There's our next t-shirt. Go ahead and leave it in the comments if you want violence is a virtue to be our next t-shirt.
You can. It's already somebody else's branding. I even bought their keychain.
Oh, man. All right.
I know. I'll link it. It's awesome. I put it on a keychain just because I was like, and the branding on it, I don't have it on my bag right here. It's
which company is that? Just shout them out.
I think it is Violence. Let me look. I'll find out.
Okay.
I'll check it out. Violence.
Anyway, Canadians hate you, so that's rad.
I know, right? Sucks. It's Few Will Hunt.
Oh yeah, I was
Yeah,
looking at
the
the stuff this morning. Yeah,
dude, yeah, no, I'll tell you what, they're freaking badass, man. Shout out to Few Will Hunt. Go check out, man. I got a rash guard. This shirt is actually, wow, I can't even believe it. Protect your neck. This is actually a shirt from Few Will Hunt. We've been DMing, and pick up that keychain. Violence is a virtue. I think they make shirts too. It's fantastic. I love it. They're a jiu-jitsu based company, man, but they give a shit. They have
yeah.
I know. I'll post the I got a sticker as well that went on my beer fridge, which is no longer a beer fridge because I don't drink anymore. But it's a sticker, and it's like the rules of Few Will Hunt, and it's badass, man. Like it is like if you ever wanted to follow, 10 rules for like, man, it's awesome because their whole thing is like many people want to eat, but few will hunt. Let's go.
It's a crispy water fridge. So did CQ Brown ever do any warfighting? I guess is the question. I have this question about Slife as well. I actually made some notes about it. I'm notorious for not doing notes and ever, which I know is super surprising because I'm so well spoken on here. But I have questions about how much action some of these guys have gotten into. You know, and CQ's been in the Air Force for a long time, and when you're like a full bird colonel or whatever around the time that 2001 happens, and you want to kind of say you're part of all that and tell people what to do, even though you never experienced any of it, it doesn't go very well. And your refusal to listen to anybody. But actually, I did bring that up. But the big question is, if CQ Brown had actually made the Air Force a good place and recruiting would have been better during his time and not talked about only about race and put himself into recruiting commercials that didn't do anything for recruiting, would we have given a shit?
No, I don't think we would have. And again, like if he had just done his job, and that's the thing, is it's not a racially based argument. It's an outputs argument. You were in charge of the Air Force. I'll tell you, when he initially had his, like the first thing that he did when he got in was the accelerate, change, or lose, like mantra, right? On its face, I was like, what a good program. Good job, CQ Brown. Okay. And basically for you guys who weren't tracking accelerate, change, or lose, it was basically formed like aimed at the bureaucracy of a lot of the regs that we follow, right? So accelerate, change, or lose was the mantra. And basically what that meant was, listen, if a reg is stupid and we follow it for no good reason, you can either delete it because we don't need it, or you can change it. But if you're not going to do any one of those two things, then you have to just follow it and you got to stop bitching about it. Man, I was on board with that. I was like, that's actually a good thing. There's a bunch of regs and a bunch of dumb stuff that we do just because we've always done it. I'm willing to sit here and be like, okay, cool. Yeah, fine.
Yeah, it wasn't all negative. You know, it's not like everything that came out of this dude's mouth was horrible. It's just, but like the constantly coming back to that same thing and all of his interviews and all that other stuff. It's like, bro, like you're in charge. Stop talking about that.
Right.
Talk about how we're gonna move into the next war or whatever it is and be as lethal as fucking possible and protect America or get the job done, whatever it is that we're doing.
For a guy that's sitting on the top of the mountain, right? If you're on top of the mountain, you know what you should be doing? You should be reaching your hand down and pulling other people up with you. And what he did is he sat on the top of the mountain, and everything that he said was pushing people back down the mountain, telling them that the only reason he was there is he somehow found a way to overcome his immutable characteristics, which were the most important thing to him. It's against the core values. Service before self.
As a senior, I like to go down to the schoolhouse and complain to the students about how hard my life is.
Like, oh my God.
Oh my goodness, guys. I know you guys, whatever, but like, let's just talk about how, as a guy from Utah, how hard it was to get to where I made it to, you know?
Do you guys understand?
Raise your hand if your family is in the Air Force or you knew special operations guys growing up. I didn't have that. So like, I understand that like, whatever, but like, let me just tell you how hard it was to get to where I am. Like, what the fuck are we talking about?
And I think now that I'm thinking through this, it's probably why we resist so many people that are like, have you ever seen anybody that's 5'2" make it through the Air Force? Shut the fuck up. It doesn't matter. Yeah, you're 5'2", deal with it. Some stuff's going to be harder. Some stuff you're going to be better at. That's not the most interesting thing about you. Do you have the internal characteristics it takes to be a PJ?
Height, age, race, who you sleep with, don't give a shit.
Don't give a shit. Except for that one fucking lady that said she wanted to be a PJ on a fucking 100.
That's different though.
On 100 fucking milligrams of test. You know you can't take test in the fucking pipeline, you dickhead. Am I allowed to call a lady a dickhead? Now, the one funny thing about that is the little wrinkle is like I try to respect women and all. Like I will not call women a bitch. Like, I don't do that. Like, I call guys bitches because I think it's just a nasty fucking thing to call some dude. Yeah. But I won't call a woman that. I won't disrespect a woman. I'll never put my hands on a woman. Like, I revere women. I think they're the best part of this planet. Right. So it's a funny thing for me in my head. Like, am I allowed to really go hard at this woman because I don't go hard at women, but they say they're a man? So am I really truly equal if I don't go hard at this woman? It's a whole thing that I've been dealing with.
Yeah, it's stupid. And no, they don't deserve your vitriol, really. They
don't. Yeah, funny story about that is, like, I put that reel out. Do you know how many direct text messages I got? I had people calling me, like, very, very decorated pararescuemen calling me to laugh on the phone, be like, bro, that was the funniest video you've ever put out. Your facial expressions fucking killed me.
Yeah.
All right. So back to CQ Brown. So this whole thing came to a head in the Senate confirmation here. I'm going to share lowercase dooms here because I love LCD. Shout out to Luke. Shout out to Kev and the other dudes that run that channel. You guys were way ahead of this story, and it was great. At least for the highlighting and accountability portion of it. We're going to go to the Senate confirmation hearing of one General CQ Brown. Now, in the Senate confirmation hearings and all this other stuff, like, there's a lot of political grandstanding. It's a lot of bullshit, right? So this gentleman is going to sit here and ask CQ Brown exactly, hey, there's some weird things in your background here. Let's talk about those.
With your August 9th memo. In your August 9th memo, you said that you signed on to that there should be a reduction, essentially, of about 9% of the white officers. That's 5,400. We have 5,400, too many white officers. And this is the real impact, I think, of this desire of the administration. I'm saddened to see this in this memo, of this obsession with sort of race-based politics being interjected into our military.
So I know what you might be thinking here. Like, that it kind of feels like a gotcha question. It kind of feels like he's, like, saying something about a memo that maybe the memo didn't say that. Well, luckily for you guys,
show me the receipts, bro.
Yeah, I got you. I got the sauce. The internet lives forever, everybody. Here's the memo that CQ Brown sent out. Now, here's some things, right? I used to tell the officers, and again, my name with some officers out there is like a dirty word. I'm sure that they feel a little bit of acidity in their mouth when they have to say the words Aaron Love. And that's fucking good. I hope you're mad. Stay mad. Cope and seethe. But what I used to tell them is, like, sometimes people, like, remember when we were talking about how people will speak on the authority of their boss and they'll want you to do something. They'll be like, well, the boss wants it done. My classic response to anybody that did that is like, okay, well, let's go talk to the boss because he's going to tell me directly. Or number two, and this is the better preferred version, put your fucking signature block on it. Make an order. You want to make this a rule? Write a piece of paper, format it correctly, and then make it a rule. So here is the actual thing. If you'll notice here, as I'm circling right here, let me just zoom in. That's his signature block. Okay? That is the signature block of one Charles Q. Brown. Now, what is this? Officer, source of commission, and applicant pool goals. Now, this is exactly what the senator there was referencing. This is the diversity and inclusion goals. White, African American, Asian. These are goals that we have. Now, I know that it's a weird thing to talk about when we have to use the definitions of words. This is what we would call a racist hiring practice. When you say,
is that legal?
Trent, it's not legal. Thanks to the Civil Rights Act and the movement that we had in the 60s to make sure that racist hiring practices weren't a thing anymore here in America. We're the only country that's done that so far in the history of the universe. These are the goals here that he said he wanted to meet. These goals are aspirational, aligning resources to invest in our long-term objectives and will not be used in any manner that undermines our merit-based process. Now, I know that might sound good, but when you're telling me that I have to hire 5,400 less white pilots in favor of more Black, African American, Asian, American Indian, Alaska Native Hawaiian, other Pacific Islander, and women pilots than you do whites, that sort of falls on his face. You are directed to develop a diversity and inclusion outreach plan aimed at achieving these goals no later than 30 September 2022.
And report annually. Like, everybody can be like, oh, well, it says aspirational goals. They're asking for a report. And if you lived through this, you understand how anything revolving around this issue, it's not just an annual report. You report every single whatever category of person that is in your pipeline, whether it's pilots or with us, up the chain. They're constant progress, right? We don't care about everybody else going through these training programs, but if there's somebody that falls into this bucket and there's the slightest bit of worry about them, that goes straight to the top 100% of the time. And the other general that got fired had, intervened, probably directly based off the authority in this memo.
It 100% was. And then he was able, again, just like I said with subordinate commanders, right? When you have a commander that has a memo that goes out like that, then your subordinate commander, there's always a little bit of, you have to forecast what your boss wants. You have to get his intent. You have to figure out what his intent is. And then as a subordinate commander or as a subordinate service member, this includes enlisted folks, when my commander would tell me something, I'd have to be like, all right, what does he actually want to get after? What's the timeline? What's the intent? What's the output? And then I had to carry that forward. And you have wide latitude as a subordinate commander, a subordinate in general, to make that thing happen. And as long as it fits inside of his intent, you can do wild shit. I'll just tell you straight up. You can just decide. You'd be like, hey, your commander, a good example, and it's a super low level one. You can be like, hey, the commander is sick of seeing these dudes with mustaches that are out of regs, right? So the commander comes to me and goes, Aaron, I want you to clean it up. You know the easiest way to clean it up is? No facial hair.
Gone. Yeah.
Done. That's why don't the Rangers have mustaches? You know why? Because they don't think it presents a professional image. So they make you shave your face. Why do the Marines have to shave on the weekend? That's why. Because at some point, some Marine commander was like, these damn devil dogs with their mustaches, we got to get rid of them. And then those Marines were directed to shave every day to include like on Sunday. I've told this story before, but I was in jump school with a Marine, a MARSOC Raider dude, a vetted combat veteran that was going to jump school. He got there. He was no kidding walking into the shop at on Fort Benning. He was walking in and some Marine that was in uniform, and he told the story. It was hilarious. Like, we're getting together for a study group at Jump Master, and he comes into the room. He's like, Aaron, you're not going to fucking believe this. I was like, hit me with it, dude. He was like, I just got yelled at on Sunday for not shaving. I was like, that's not real. He was like, no. So he tells the story. He's walking across the thing, and he hears the classic from across the parking lot. Hey, devil dog. Hey there, devil dog. Because he had his recon shirt on or some shit, his MARSOC shirt on. He was like, hey, devil dog. Any reason why you didn't shave that face? And he was like, well, Gunny, it's Sunday. I'm off work. I'm going to, is it really that important? But that's because at some point in history, some Marine general was like, I hate seeing that hair. One hair on my Marines' faces leads to death on the battlefields. And then his subordinate commander is like, I can fix it for you. No mustaches. You're never, you know what? You're going to shave on the weekends too. Because what happens if you get called into work? You got to shave every single day. That's how that stuff happens. That's how subordinate commanders can take the intent of their higher command and then proceed to go whole hog on some bullshit.
Oh yeah, and for all the people that complain on like the Facebooks and all that other stuff, your command, if you read the reg, the commander can go more strict than the regulation. They just can't go the other direction. So it's like, oh, they can't do that. The reg says, and it's like, nah, they can go as strict as they want. Hey, all dudes, you're gonna have shaved heads. Go.
That's it. Yeah.
Guess what? Why? Because I want tomorrow with shaved heads, and it's 100% legal.
100% legal. I can exceed that standard in any way that I see fit in order to satisfy my commander's intent. Those are the Air Force words that I'm supposed to use. If I tell you, I want you to stop what you're doing right now and go get a fucking haircut, even though your hair is completely within regulations, you're going to go get a haircut, or I'm going to counsel you, and that is going to stick. Because that's how this works. The first sergeant tells you that your shirt was untucked and he wants to punish you for not wearing clothes correctly. Guess what? You are going to tuck that shirt in, and then you're going to tuck your shirt in, and you're going to stand with your hands behind your back while some grown man dresses you down in front of your peers and your supervisor. That's what's going to happen. So all this stuff, again, and the pendulum swung way too far. As we transition here, not transition like that lady that pretended she was at the top of her class and her
I was going to be a pararescue person.
No, you fucking weren't. And I just say that from, hundreds of thousands of data points beforehand. No, the fuck you were not. I was the best person at my development group. Were you the only person there, or was it the two people that you think you are? The woman you were born as and the guy that you are now? Whatever. So this is the thing that started getting everybody all Twitter-pated. So here is the statement from the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. He put this out on February 21st, 2025. He announced Raising Cane. Again, can't speak highly enough for the dude who's going to take the position. Well, this little thing right here is what started people talking. I am also... People started like texting this, and I was frantically scouring the internet. And I said in one of the group chats, I was like, I want to see that little cuck's name. I want to see those 5 little letters, SLIFE. So in this announcement right here, I'm requesting the nominations for position of Chief Naval Operations and Air Force Vice Chief of Staff. These incumbents in these important roles, Admiral Lisa Freschetti and General James Slife, respectively, have had distinguished careers. We thank them for their service and their dedication to our country. That's why Pete Hegseth is better at this than you are. Everything started blowing up. Everything started absolutely blowing up. Trent,
is this real? Is this real? So can we confirm this? Like, people were going bananas. I was house hunting, and like my phone was just like bzz, 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 like constantly all night long. I was like, guys, I'm trying to like make a pretty big life decision here on which house we're gonna buy next.
Right.
But yeah, you can't help the news, you know.
You can't help it. But then, you know, we found that to be correct. General James Slife, which is a great transition in. Now, let's talk about, they call him the professor. Trent, has Jim Slife ever been to war?
I don't think so. You know, I was looking up on his official bio, right? In 2001, when the war kicked off, he was at the School of Advanced Air Power Studies student in Maxwell Air Force Base. And then after that, he was a DO of the 20th SOS at Hurlburt Field. And then, so like, he's already in like command positions. He's already lieutenant colonel. He went to the, you know, Mildenhall as the commander, deputy commander, secretary of defense, corporate fellow at Microsoft, which explains a lot, by the way. And so then I was looking at his ribbon rack, and I am confused. And I asked you about this earlier before we started, I think. He has a combat action medal. Aaron, can you explain in the early days of GWAT, or like the mid 2000s, especially with flyers, how when the combat action badge first, or combat action medal, not the cab, the combat action medal for the Air Force first came about, how many pilots were doing real shady things trying to get their hands on one of those?
All right, let me think. How many were doing shady things to do it? Fucking all of them. Every single fucking one of them. So we, like, no kidding.
How many people took off out of Kandahar or Bagram and immediately called that they were under fire?
Accurately incoming fire. It was such a crazy thing, right? And we had a joke about how HH-60s were impervious to ground fire, even though we were flying at 50 feet, leaving every single place. I was literally on a helicopter with rotors turning. We were about to take off to do something. We had to wait for a C-130 that was taking off. The C-130 took off. We took off immediately afterwards. We flew the same trail out, there was this one little Kalat. Kalat is like a village in Afghanistan. You take off out of this one little Kalat, and almost every single time that we flew over this Kalat, people would look at us. Sometimes people would clack off their AK. Sometimes, you know, whatever. It was a pretty common thing in that Kalat for it to happen. We had noticed over the past like 3 weeks, there was finally a clearing operation in that Kalat that was just outside of Bagram Air Force Base, because they used to fire rockets on the Bagram from that same place. And they would do it in a very inventive way. They were not like aimed at all. This wasn't like a dude lasing a target. They would literally have a cigarette that would burn next to a fuse, and they would set a rocket up on some rocks. And when the cigarette burned down to hit the fuse, the rocket would kick off, and they wouldn't be there. So that way they would defeat our ability to fucking kill them for it, right? However, they finally did a clearing operation inside of this Kalat. And it had been quiet. Like the last 3 nights that we had went out, it was fine. Like we flew over it, and like, you know, it used to be like every time you'd be like, all right, well, somebody's going to clack off a round of AKs, and it usually comes from this set of buildings over here. So we're just going to kind of like not overfly that. And like, you guys just, you know, don't sit with your legs out of the helicopter for a little bit and make sure everything's cool, like standard stuff, right? So C-130 takes off. They fly out. We fly out. Quiet night. Totally fine. Not a thing. And I can tell you because I was 50 feet above the fucking buildings. Like as we were flying out, I can tell you because I could look into people's windows, you fucking morons. We come back to base and we find out that C-130 crew put themselves in for a combat action medal because they had received accurate incoming fire from the enemy. And they got it.
Yeah.
And they got it. The combat action badge was meant to be like, if you engage in, like, the Air Force basically made this medal up because we didn't have one beforehand, like ground operations in the Air Force, you know, people that serve their entire careers from like, you know, 1980 to 2001, you know, if they got into a firefight with somebody, and that was few and far between in Air Force in that time frame, but if you got into a firefight with somebody, you know, you didn't get anything for it. They were just like, well, yeah, there wasn't, whatever. Like the Army had these things, the infantry had these, things to be like, hey, you actually got into an engagement with the enemy, and we're going to like recognize the fact that you got into a gunfight for your life and you're here now. Like that's why they made the combat action badge. Air Force didn't have anything like that. They ended up making that, I think, specifically because of CZ. Chief Master Sergeant Ramon Colon Lopez was one of the guys that was the driving forces behind inventing that medal and giving it to dudes. I actually had, when I was in Vegas, Chris Wilson, we had him on the podcast. Chris was one of the guys credited with saving more than 10,000 people in the HKI scenario. You should go watch that episode. It's badass. Chris was one of the first people to get that. He was on a team.
Announced Tim Kennedy.
It is. Chris Wilson didn't have 50 grenades on him. That's why he got the medal. Yeah, but Chris was one of the first PJs, or not one of the first PJs, but he was one of the first PJs that I was aware of. And I was supervising him at the time, and he was awarded the Combat Action Medal for some stuff he did on a task force rotation. It was awesome. Yeah. It was a good thing. But the aircraft would do this all the time. C-17s. I love my C-17 bros. I got love in my heart for y'all.
Cadillac of the skies.
Cadillac of the skies. Great to jump out of. I've had some great naps going across the Atlantic.
So smooth.
Man, when you got your own C-17 and it's just you and the bros and all your gear, you're sleeping in your hammocks, you're broing out with the back enders, you're talking to the pilots, they'd let you come up. I flew a plane once. That's for legal reasons. That's a joke. The C-17 will fly itself. So it's on autopilot. I love you. You don't deserve a combat action badge. You just
it's weird. None of these birds had holes in them when they came back. So how are you saying that it was accurate? Anyway, it was definitely a thing though, and everybody knew it. It's like the whole dogs being racist thing. Like everybody knows this is an open secret that all dogs the pilots,
those assault dogs. There's only so many times an assault dog can bite a brown person before it bites the wrong brown person. I don't know what to tell you. Like it's a dog.
And this isn't just an Army problem, because the Army would have or only an Air Force problem, because the Army, you'd have these like higher level commanders that would come out to the FOB and they want to go out there, and then they're going to put themselves in for a that they fall under infantry or whatever, so they get the infantry badge. The rest of us get the CAB from the Army when we went through those things. Prior to the Air Force having the combat action medal.
And I will tell you,
some of these officers they need it. It's especially on the Army side. It is if you do not have the right badges and accoutrement, it's really difficult to get promoted. So they have to come out to the FOB and pretend like they got into a firefight with the boys. Otherwise. Yeah, it's not. And happening. I will tell you the Air Force rescue community, and again, no shade to helicopter pilots, except for that one dork. What was his name? Tanner, dork helicopter pilot that threatened to fight me because I called him a in the DMs. Tanner, you're still a I fucking hate you. You're a dork. I can't believe you're a major. Good thing we put that disclaimer on the front end of this one.
Yeah, fuck him. I don't give a shit. We're back. There's an executive order that says I'm allowed to be petty and I'm allowed to call people gay and retarded. And that guy is definitely gay and retarded. I'm going to tag him in a reel later just to fucking make sure he knows I still hate him. But I'll tell you what, they weren't immune to it either, man. We were in Bastion. We took off. We went and did a mission. We came back. The pilots walked into our they walked into our tent and they started opening this conversation with myself and the DO, who is the deployed commander. Good dude, BC, what up? They walked in and the pilot was like, hey, we're going to put the whole crew in for a combat action badge, combat action medal. And we were like, what the fuck do you mean? Like, yeah, it was a little bit sporty, but whatever. They were like, oh no, dude, we have it on the FLIR, man. Like as you guys were getting on the aircraft, there were like rounds popping up and shit. We were incredulous. We were like, hey man, you didn't tell us that there was incoming fire. You didn't seem to mention it. And now you want a badge for it. We saw the video and I think that actually did happen, but that led to a ridiculously adversarial conversation because we were like, how dare you didn't radio us? They were like, well, we took off really quickly. We're like, I'm the guy outside of the road. I had team members outside of the rotor disc when this happened. Like that is a huge fail. And then the fact that they wanted to come in and get a medal for it. One of the saving graces here is they were like, well, we got to put everybody in for it. And right away, my commander was like, I'm not supporting it. I won't put my guys in for it. He was like, you guys can try to put yourself in for it. He was like, but you're going to do it without the team in the back. And their DO ended up having to come over and have a follow-on conversation. Be like, well, I want it for my guys. And, it does technically fit and all this other stuff. My commander,
what's the definition of like accurate fire? And didn't they end up changing it where you had to return fire as well? Or was that just for us? The rules for
I think it was just for us.
Different.
And it was because all these things came out. They were like, hey, you got a couple pot shots by a dude. When we used to fly over that Kalat, a lot of times, man, we were blacked out flying pretty much as fast as we could go. And on that turnout, because you had to start low because it was Afghanistan, and helicopters didn't have the power and whatever else. You had to like start off low, but we would just go faster. And, you know, it happened in Iraq too. Like in Iraq, when I deployed the first time in 2009, 2010, you just had to fly fast as shit because they couldn't see you. We had night vision. They didn't know where we were. They could hear the helicopters, but especially in Iraq and whatever, without like, there weren't like a ton of mountains where we were flying over, especially if we were going north to like Mosul or something, or going over the salt flats. They could hear you, but they couldn't see you. They didn't know where you were flying. They didn't know our TTP. So they would just spray and pray and hope that they would hit you. And a lot of times they would miss wildly. I mean, you'd see them 200 or 300 meters away firing in the wrong direction. The helicopter pilots thought like they would use that to get their combat action medal, and it was ridiculous. But yeah, Jim Slife, I don't think that he actually deserves that medal. I would think that he probably massaged the system in order for him to get promoted, which fits into his careerist mindset that he's had the entire time. It's one of the biggest digs on Jim Slife of all time, is that he is a careerist. He will lie. He will look at your fit. He hates ST. But he will use the systems that we have made for him. Again, the combat action badge or combat action medal came from the pararescue and the AFSOC community writ large. And then he massaged those regs in order to aggrandize himself. That's what Jim Slife did.
And I bring it up just because like it says a lot about a person, right? The medals chasing, the guy still wears the airborne wings that are not real airborne wings because he's a giant douchebag. And he's just the kind of guy that like when you look through his career and where he was and where he was not, and then you lead all the way to the point where this dude, and you could claim that he doesn't hate ST, but he's the guy that when he was up at the Pentagon directly, he shut down dive school for the combat controllers and special reconnaissance guys. Like this is the douchebag that did that. Even after we came on and said like, per the regs, you're not allowed to do that. He's one of those guys that he gets enough stars. He's in the position to do something really stupid that he doesn't understand based on feelings. He's going to do it. And
You're correct.
Yeah.
You were 100% correct, my friend. So here we go. Further in his career here, extremism has reared its head, an Air Force Special Operations general says. Now, here's what I referenced earlier. This was during my timeline, February 25th, 2021. Yeah. I was getting ready. Like we had an entire stand down. Now we're going to talk about some other things too that I'm very personally connected to with firsthand experience here. But this is the type of person it is. As the U.S. military seeks to identify and root out instances of extremism in the ranks, the head of Air Force Special Operations Command, Jim Slife, said Thursday, it's reared its head in that community. Now imagine, I love a quote that I like to use, and it's from what movie? It's the Scorsese movie, and I'm blanking on it. Leo DiCaprio, The Departed.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's not. It's from The Town. Sorry, I had the wrong Boston movie in my head.
Oh, that's not Scorsese. That's an Affleck.
It is an Affleck, and it's actually Ben Affleck that has the quote, and he's sitting in the interrogation room with the guy that grew up, the one detective that's trying to take down the Crown and the crew of dudes, and the guy's trying to get under his skin, and he says a bunch of mean stuff to Ben Affleck about his dad in prison and all this other stuff, and Ben Affleck looks at him and goes, hey, what do you call a person that knows your most intimate secrets, that grew up with you, that knows all of these things about you, that's part of your community? And then what do you call that person when they use those secrets to hurt you and hurt those people? You call that person a fucking rat. That's who Jim Slife is. Like the fact that he would dare say that extremism had reared its ugly head inside of his own command is the most disgusting thing that I can imagine. Imagine what kind of person you have to be for these people that not only, and by the way, like this is going to maybe piss some officers off, but I don't care. You guys can go to sleep on your huge piles of money thanks to your fucking base pay. This guy rose to the levels that he did on the backs of his men. Jim Slife may have pointed the aircraft somewhere, but the people that are in the back of that aircraft that make the aircraft fly, that actually do the mission that they're meant to do, a pilot's job is very, very small. And when you start going up through those commands, like Trent so adroitly pointed out, you are getting those benefits from the men and women that you command. And your achievements are from leading the men and the women, right? Well, the people that are actually doing the things that get you promoted are the very people that he called extremists. They're the very people that he said were white Christian nationalists. And he had a whole stand down over it. Not only that, but he had a surprise drug test for all of AFSOC. Now, I don't know how that points to extremism. And by the way, that net, like the results came back from that and got like nobody. You know why? Because there also is, surprising, right? Like dudes are just fucking absolutely hilarious. But that's who Jim Slife is. right? That's what Jim Slife does. The extremism has reared its ugly head and his stand downs and all this other stuff. I'm going to play another video from Lowercase Dooms here because it's just magnifique. It's just so good.
Well, what? Yeah.
Home. What's waiting for me at home is really bad.
What's waiting for you at home?
I don't know. When I get home, there's something I'm worried about my life. I just don't want to.
It just.
But
Oh my God.
The thing is if you're a weaker person that cannot compete on a meritocracy and you feel a certain kind of way about those dudes that have gotten out of the back of your helicopter and go and meet the enemy and shoot people in the face and do all these other things, and then you're moving up the ranks, right? And you see this with people that think that rank actually means something different than what it means. It's not just a level of responsibility, but like they dream of people just like doing what they say, right? They seek that power. And when, you know, you can't compete with them on a meritocracy level, or you feel like they're, you know, they don't listen to you, and especially the enlisted force, I'm thinking we're very open and honest as enlisted people on the ST side. And I don't think he liked it. So like whether or not he believes this stuff, he saw that as a tool to exercise authority over us in a way that was pretty sick.
It's pretty disgusting. So I brought it up here. Like, you may think that, hey, memes are just memes and you're whatever. Nope. It fits directly into the rules for radicals. Rules number 5 from my friend. What's his name again?
Alinsky.
Yeah. Saul Alinsky. Ridicule is a man's most potent weapon. There is no defense. It is almost impossible to counteract ridicule. It also infuriates the opposition who react to your advantage. Man, that's just IO campaigns. That's how it is. Like, welcome to the new world, jackass. Jim Slife, you're getting everything that you deserve. Now, you might think to yourself, this guy's probably a good guy, right? He's probably not operating in a system that means to, you know, hide the things that he's done, work in the back to make sure that nobody can find these things. I want to bring your attention to a little somebody called Jordan L. Carr. Jordan L. Carr has been doing the Lord's work for exposing all of this stuff. She was hot and heavy into the exposure of what was going down at Herbie and into all the stuff that was going on with all of the woke nonsense and stuff. She posted this tweet on January 21st of 2025. She reposted it here. She talked about AFSOC Unfiltered, Episode 1. It was published on YouTube August 10th, 2020. It features Lieutenant General Jim Slife, the commander of Air Force Special Operations Command, in a conversation with Colonel Myron Shivas. The episode focuses on listening, learning, and leadership, aiming to foster better understanding and leadership among all team members. They discuss challenging topics, including race and personal experiences, aiming to promote open dialogue within the military community. Now, something that popped up that's sort of interesting is that it appears that all of these things have been straight up scrubbed from the internet. Now, Trent, why would you need to scrub something from the internet?
To protect your job. You know what I mean?
Right. To protect your job. That seems about right. Maybe if you did something wrong. Now, I am not a fan. Like, this kind of goes into my very independent mindset, right? Like, I don't want people spying on me, but sometimes people will say, well, if you've got nothing to hide, then you shouldn't mind. You shouldn't mind me looking through your phone and your text messages.
Well, and it points to that unwillingness to actually stand behind any values or principles, right? Like we have principles on this podcast. Like, we will not delete episodes. Now, we have had guests that I wish that we hadn't have had on.
Yep.
But like at a time when maybe they were not nearly as cringy as they were.
And they are now. And I look back at those episodes and I cringe and I wish I was smarter, but I wasn't. And I will not delete those. I won't defend it now. But I'll tell you what.
We made mistakes, and it is what it is. But the fact that you cannot stand on principle and defend the things that you've done, or you're unwilling to do it because you're a coward, that's what it says. He doesn't think he did anything wrong. He doesn't care. He doesn't have any principles to work in that operating environment where things are right or they're wrong. It's just moving up the chain and gaining power, right? And so, like, hopefully he can retire someday and get a board position at Raytheon, which, when they scrub their clearances and all that other crap when they retire now, which should be happening all the time, it's going to be beautiful to see how much different it is for these folks once they're out of the military.
Right. Here's the thing, though. The internet lives forever, right? So we saw the tweet from Jordan Kerr. She said, directly in that tweet back in January of 2021, hey, you can go ahead and try to scrub this stuff because you know that it looks bad for you. it ain't going anywhere, homie. You can try to delete it all you want. And that led me to do this little trick here. So I Googled AFSOC Unfiltered episode 1. It's exactly what Jordan Carr. And again, go follow Jordan Carr over on X, over on Twitter.
Oh, it's still on DVids?
It's still on DVids. Well, here's the interesting thing. So as I look at this, I thought to myself, oh, they couldn't have possibly deleted it, right?
Oh, they took it off of DVids. Yeah.
Oh.
Why are you ashamed of that podcast there, Air Force General Slife? Or former
Why
General
are
Slife?
you?
Jim? Let's say
Yeah.
Jim. Jim, what happened on that podcast that you had to hide?
That motherfucker's open to work, homie. I put out that little meme in the group chat. Jim Slife, it looks like you need to learn to code, big dog. So as we look at this, as we root out this disgusting narrative that we've had to deal with, Jim Slife has 100% damaged the core values of the United States Air Force, damaged AFSOC, damaged everything that we care about in such a way that that's where the vitriol is coming from. This guy that aggrandizes himself, this careerist person that has done real harm. And, you know, I just want to talk about two things. I don't want to get too far into it because I'm still very emotional about it. Jim Slife also presided over the deaths of two of my teammates. Peter Cranes died in a training accident, and the resultant investigation into this, Jim Slife's answer to this was fire two of my good friends, one of which tried to save Peter's life on target. He denigrated their families, the things that he said while we were searching for Cole Condiff, who is still lost in the Gulf of Mexico. I was the jump master that tried to jump to go get Cole. And I was told by my chain of command that it was too risky and that we couldn't get him. And then I was involved in the actual search for the next day. Now, I will say, like, for full transparency, man, I was a pretty heavy alcoholic at the time, and I made some bad choices about what I posted on social media, and the aforementioned lowercase dooms held me to account for that. It's a mistake. It is what it is. It's up on the internet. Go find it if you want. It's fine. I'm a different person now, or I'd like to think I'm at least a better person now, but that came out of my absolute hurt and crush. Like the impact that Jim Slife had on me personally from that event, and some other people that we named earlier in this thing, led to the end of my career. Like, those events, those happened within a month of each other. We lost Peter in October, and we lost Cole Condiff in November. Those events happened for me in a month time frame. Like, I heard that my friend Peter had died when I was getting ready to go fly my last jump master evaluation at Static Line Jump Master School, which I had to go back to for some stupid reason as an E7 with 20 years in. And then later that month at the ST rodeo, Cole, his chute fired because it was a bad chute, and that the safety report is just absolute bullshit. The investigation that followed is fucking disgusting. AFSOC did nothing but try to protect themselves. They decertified every jump master on that airplane for, two specific jump masters and a piece of equipment that were not done correctly. But that came from Jim Slife. The comments that he made about Cole being lost in the Gulf of Mexico were fucking disgusting. And it caused real harm to his family. It caused real harm to our community. It caused real harm to my friends. And for that, I have no love lost. I was telling you before I came on, I texted my friend, and I'll protect his identity. I texted him and I was like, hey man, tell me you're tracking this. And he's like, yeah, it sounds like Jim Slife's getting exactly what he deserves. And I was like, yeah, to be honest with you, I hope he fucking over it. I hope it leads in his life. Now, listen, I'm a petty person. I understand how that's probably not morally or ethically sound. Like, I'll deal with that. Thanks. I'll talk to my creator about that, and I'll answer for the bad things that I do in my head. But it's because that's how strongly I feel about this man. He hurt my friends. He hurt their family. He denigrated exactly what we're supposed to do. If there's one thing that I can say that Jim Slife ruined about my career, and has nothing to do with me personally, it's that we have a motto that others may live. And that means that even if it fucking kills me, you got to let me go try.
Yep.
Jim Slife hated the Air Force and hated ST. And because of his own personal desires, he hated us so badly that he wouldn't let me do the one thing that I connected with in the military. And the second that I got out of that, I knew I was done. That's why we hate Jim Slife. That's why we're glad that he's fired. That's why we're glad CQ Brown is gone. That's why the memes are flying around. That's why people talk about him with such vitriol, is because he's a real person that made real decisions. He has an address. He has a place that he lives, and he's allowed to enjoy the freedoms of America after fucking denigrating somebody that he lost. It's his fucking issue. He was the commander, and the resultant decisions that he made to continue his behavior of just absolute nonsense post that event. That's why people hate him. That's why people are glad. That's why everybody is celebrating and mocking him, because he deserves it. He deserves to be mocked. He deserves to be shamed. He deserves to retire in shame. He deserves to have a black mark on his record. And I hope anybody out there that is thinking about hiring this guy sees him for the cuck that he is, because he's a piece of shit.
I think that's a good place to end it.
Good. Fuck him. Anyway,
All right.
hopefully you enjoyed this episode. But you know, listen, guys, like, there's hope here. Trent and I are not black-pilled. Trent and I have hope, right? The number one thing is Trent like just cuts his camera. He's like, I got to get out of here. Trent, we have hope. Okay. When you see things like this, yes, there's a backstory. Yes, it's disgusting. Yes, it's something that we don't love and we don't want to have to deal with, right? But there's hope. There's hope now that things are turning around. We have somebody that's holding these people accountable. The other thing that Pete Hegseth said that he is 100% going to do is he's going to hold people accountable for the Afghanistan withdrawal that broke earlier this week. These outputs, these decisions, I'm an output guy. I'm a spreadsheet guy. I don't care about the allegations against Pete Hegseth. They were largely unfounded. I care about, is he a +1 or a -1? This is a +1 in the category, right? So on the spreadsheet of doing good, getting rid of this ideology, getting rid of these people, holding these people accountable for the real harm that they've done our communities, it's a good thing. And yeah, some people are going to get caught up in this, that maybe you know, somebody gets punished and maybe they didn't have as big of a role as it's made out to be, and maybe those people catch it too. You need to burn it down, right?
What are we talking about?
What's that? We're talking about hope. We're talking about the good outputs that Pete Hegseth has done for the community. We're talking about his overall good. And yeah, like there's going to be more firings. There's going to be more people that we uncover as we dig into stuff. You know, since I'm a medical guy, when you have a limb that's gangrenous and infected and is going to kill you, you don't just rip the Band-Aid off. You don't just put a fresh bandage on it. Sometimes you got to cut that limb off. Sometimes you have to get rid of the rot. And this is just indicative. CQ Brown, I'm glad you're gone. It's not about race. Jim Slife, I'm glad you're gone. It's not
about height.
It is about
You're short,
height.
and that's why we hate you.
If you're short, you got to be good, right? Like if you're short, you got to be Peaches, and everybody's got to love you. Because I'll tell you what.
And I'm not trying to be hyperbolic, but like he's one of the best combat controllers of all time, and like he kind of had to be because he's fun size.
I wish that there was, remember the old trunk monkey commercials where the dude just, I got a trunk monkey, and he would pop out and it would be like, I pictured Peach doing that, but like out of a ruck. Like, oh my God, shit's about to go south. Get the fucking ruck, Peaches.
Get the JTAC. He just pops out of the ruck with all his radios.
And then proceeds to unalive hundreds of people in compounds because they deserve it for trying to kill Americans. Yeah,
it's funny that Peaches, people like have no idea about Jared because he refuses to talk about himself, and also he is a savage, folks. Mm-hmm. So like he's also the nicest guy on earth. He's confusing,
right? It is a confusing guy, but that's it. That's the rundown. That's why people are glad Slife is gone. That's why people are glad that CQ Brown is gone. But most importantly, I hope that you hear this and you know that there's hope. Know that there's a way forward. Know that we are getting back to center. Know that we are starting to adhere to our core values, and know that we are starting to really embrace what it means to be in Air Force Special Operations. And we see people that harm Air Force Special Operations. We finally have a mechanism to get rid of those people, to get them out of where it is that we are now. And that's the point of this episode. Not only to denigrate and mock these men, which I'm glad, happy to do it. I'll be the bearer of bad news on that one. But to show you that there is a way forward. If you were thinking about getting in and you're like, well, I don't want to have to deal with this woke stuff, use this as your springboard to go, hey, hold on. The adults are in charge again, and we're going to start getting back to the business of war fighting and being a lethal fighting force, which is the only thing that Pete Hegseth cares about. So, to Pete Hegseth, I know you're a big listener to the podcast. Thanks for being a member back here, the members only section. We love it. Thanks for supporting us.
Is this members only? I thought we were just going to release this and let it go.
I'll release it. I don't give a shit. I'll put this one out in the world. I'll talk to Peaches about it. Like, man, you know what? I'll put a story out. I'll put a story out right after this, and we'll decide. It's probably one of the spicier episodes where I talk a whole gang of shit. I can't even believe what I really meant to get into the next target here because it's not good enough just to count your wins. You have to go ahead and keep that momentum. Obese Anthony Bauerfeind, you're fucking next. We got 3 of them. You should be gone too. I can't wait until you get fired again. And I know that makes people upset, but good. Cry.
Maybe we should do an episode targeted at like tech sergeants and master sergeants and captains and majors. because you guys are the ones that are going to be stepping up into a lot of these roles, and how to avoid the mistakes of being a careerist piece of shit as you move up, and where your focus should be. Because people like Jim, that's all about him, and that's you're not going to catch people that are leading or are following you if that's how you are. So all of you folks that are moving up into those positions, you need to take a hard look at yourselves and what you've been doing, and see if you need to make changes to inspire the type of followership that you seek. And that means it's a level of responsibility. It's not about you, and you got to take care of your people. And that's why we're so happy to be rid of these folks that are all about themselves, that are self-centered and not looking out for their people. Because that's not top cover. That's not leadership. That's bullshit.
Amen, brother. Seems like a good place to end it. We're not going to get canceled off this. You guys can't cancel us, so we don't care. So shout out to all my AFSOC JAG folks that watch regularly and then cry in their offices. Hope you're having a good one, but we're going to continue. We're a 5-year overnight success in the making. We aren't going anywhere. We got millions of views. Your little AFSOC Unfiltered doesn't do the numbers that we do off of a simple story on Instagram. And we are going to keep being the gorilla in your room and the thorn in your side at the same time. So thanks everybody for hanging out. Make sure to check everything we're doing. Go to the One's Ready homepage. You're going to see it's new. It looks different. The reading list is back up. It's integrated in a different way. We got everything you need. The link tree is on there. Go to the link tree inside of the Instagram account and on the YouTube page and on the homepage, as a matter of fact. That's where we have all the links for everything that you need to do. And we're here to provide you with hope and accountability. We got a big network of people that are all working towards the same thing. And I hope that you see a little bit of hope in your future as well. That's it. We'll see you next time.
You canceled, Jim.